So video number 2 of the day. Video number 1 was deploying a static portfolio site to Heroku. As kind of we left off, I mean, this is clearly not much of a portfolio, but it is a working bootstrap site that is deployed on evangudmested.herokuapp.com. This is what we did in our first video. And so now the idea is whenever I update this particular repo, which is a directory on my computer, whenever I update this, I commit and push those changes, then it triggers this process, this deployment process. And I really need to stop my notifications from popping up. Yeah. Because Mike said I'll be up in your area in a bit. Yeah. And I'm going to, I don't know, do this at another time. Okay, back into this. So, under my Heroku account, it now has one app, and I was tracking it under activity. Again, that activity tab kind of shows when you're doing a build and deployment process. Okay, now the next process is another app. This app is going to be our React app, and so currently, just to set this up, I have a React app in a subdirectory in a repository. So my repository I have here just called Evan Gudmested, and then I believe it's under labs, and then I've got this React practice, and this has been what we've been working on with my particular was cars, right, where we're doing CRUD operations with cars. And so I'm going to deploy this as my next project on Heroku. Okay, so we'll let Mr. Smith drive.
So we're going to go back to checklist step number 1, right? We have created a repository. Because remember, we don't want a repository that has a bazillion different projects in it. We want a repository that just has one thing in it. So you want to go back to GitHub. And this time, we're going to create it from scratch. We're not going to use a template. So if you go up on the top right, you should see a little plus icon and a little arrow next to it. If you hit that, you're going to see that there's a few options. What we want to do is create a new repository. Okay. And so just like we did before, we're going to give this a name. And we're not going to use a template here, so it says no template.
So I'm going to call this maybe a CRUD cars, React CRUD cars. So React CRUD cars.
And maybe do dashes to separate the words.
Great idea. React CRUD cars.
Okay. And you mark it as public or private?
I'll keep it public.
Okay. In here, generally speaking, I will actually check all of these boxes. So add README, I get ignore and choose license. The README is just going to be a simple file. It's going to put there as a placeholder thing. Under get ignore, you need to specifically pick node. Yep. Under the license, okay, the license says, what's the license if somebody else wanted to use this code, right? And so if you're giving this out for free, it's like anybody can use it. The answer would be MIT. MIT is a very short blurb. It says, hey, anybody can use this for free. It's no big deal. You don't have to check that. And in fact, maybe it's up to you whether or not you want to do that. If you don't check that box, you don't include a license. You're not giving people permission to use it. So depending on how you feel about that code and how you want that ownership, you can say, don't check that box. It's your code. Check that box. You're saying anybody can use this as they so wish. Cool?
Cool.
Okay. So let's go ahead and create that repository. All right. So there's a very simple, plain repository. It's got to get ignore. It's got a license. It's got a README. So I always start my repositories usually that way, is with those 3 files. Cool? All right. We want to get some more code in there. So we're going to go to code, and we're going to clone this repository down.
You want to go into Visual Studio Code to do that, or you want to go into?
Oh, no, I was saying the code.
Okay,
drop-down. Or
okay.
You can do it through GitHub Desktop.
Okay.
However you want to do it.
Okay, so we're gonna go the code button. I see what you're saying. The code button, and just as I've done in the last video, I copy the URL, and I'm going to go into GitHub Desktop, and I'm going to click on File Clone Repository. I'm going to click on URL. I'm going to paste in the URL from GitHub, and again, I'm going to pay close attention to the directory on my local computer. That directory is on my desktop, web dev repos, React CRUD cars. I think that's great. So I'm going to click on clone.
Yep. So we have a brand new repository, really nothing much in it. We can now get our code into it.
So, question. We started create React app from an empty folder.
Yeah.
And now we're going back and we're talking about how to get this into its own individual repo.
Yeah.
Would you normally not do that order of operations? Normally you'd create the repo first and then create React app?
Yep, exactly. That's
Okay.
usually what happens. Is usually you create the repo first, and then you pull that down and create the React app into that. I don't typically create the application and then the repo. It's always the repo first.
Okay, so just realizing that normal order of operations probably just make it a little bit easier on yourself in the future. You know, create the repo first, clone it down, then create React app into that folder. Okay.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to go find the files you have, your practice project on your computer.
So mine again. So there's two folders now. There's React practice. This is where I've done all my work, and then there's React CRUD cars. And so I need to go into my React practice folder. That's what Mr. Smith was saying.
Yep.
We need to locate where our files are.
And just a reminder, making sure you have things in subfolders and not subfolders, again, is really super important. Do not copy the React practice folder. Copy the files inside of that folder. Okay?
Yep.
So you're going to copy the files that are here.
All of these files.
Yep. So you're going to copy that.
I'm not copying the React practice folder. I'm copying the files and subfolders in that folder.
Right. Copying stuff inside of that folder.
Okay.
So now you're going to go back to your repository, into React CRUD cars, and you're going to paste that here.
Okay, we're going to paste. Of course, it's going to ask us to override some files.
Yep. This is pretty normal.
45,000 items.
Yes. So notice that this takes a very long time. The reason that this has got 45,000 files is because you're copying the node modules folder. I usually don't copy the node modules folder for that very reason, because it takes absolutely forever. So this is going to take a while. We might as well just cancel it.
Okay. We're not going to, okay, so what we need to do is not copy the node modules. So
because otherwise you'll be sitting here for quite a while.
okay, let's cancel and let's try this again.
So when you go into here, go back into that. So rather than copying everything except.
Yeah. So what you can do is you can highlight it all, then hold down Control, and then click the node modules to deselect node modules. So again, you hold down Control, will allow you to deselect. Now we copy this, and we go back into the folder, and let's paste. And of course, we're going to replace the files in the destination. Let's just click the check mark.
Now, you'll notice there's already a node modules because that's a leftover from what's there previously. We need to clean up after that and delete them.
Yeah, so that should not be here. So I'm just going to right-click, delete node modules.
Because it was only like half finished, only half of the files are there.
We don't need node modules at this point.
Yeah. Because the quicker way to get them is to just download them again. It's actually quicker usually to download them again rather than copy them.
Yep.
So if you right-click in here, and then you go to Open with Code.
Remember, we'll probably do this here is we'll get node modules by running npm install.
Yeah, That's how I would do that. That would be much faster.
Okay, so we're gonna do that first.
Yep. So let's test it. We've copied things over. Let's make sure that things work.
So let's go view terminal npm install.
Mhm. Yep.
That'll get our node modules kind of downloaded and
Mhm.
faster than copy paste. Also the command that we've done this, when you're taking it from computer to computer, you need to run this command.
Mhm. He's complaining about some old stuff because there's some older dependencies inside of Create React App. Okay, we're good. Right, so that install was done, and it didn't take 5 hours.
Yep, so now we'll start it up. Does tend to run a little slower the first time you launch it.
There you go. Okay, good.
Okay, and so we, hopefully if we search for Nissan, all this kind of stuff is still working. All of our search capabilities were still there. We got adding car, that was functioning. We've got edit working. So seemingly good.
Yep, all good. So we go back to VS Code. So basically what we've done at this point is we just took the code that we had in one place and we brought it over to this brand new repository. So this repository has just this one thing in it, just this one project. And you'll notice, important things to notice, like public and source are at the root of this folder. They're at the root of this repository. Package.json is at the root of this repository. If they're not, this will not work. If you have another layer of folders in here, this won't work. Okay, so let's go to the branch over there. You say number 24. And let's commit the changes that we have. Now, you'll notice, there's a bunch of things. There's 24 files changed. So type in a commit comment.
I don't know that we've actually gone through Visual Studio Code to commit and push, but you'll kind of see the process here. We'll stage our changes. So there's 24 changes to stage. And so now you can see they're all, they're staged. We'll go ahead and give it a message. And I'll say added we've got create read update code. It's not everything. So this is a pretty big commit.
Yeah. Usually I try to go for smaller commits.
Yeah.
It's kind of unavoidable here.
Yeah.
So sync changes.
Let's sync changes. This action will pull and push. Okay.
Okay. No issues because there's no changes coming down. There's no changes to pull. We're just committing.
Okay, so you can kind of see our version control, source control kind of over here in this tab, and that's another way. We've done this with GitHub Desktop. We've done it with now Visual Studio Code, and we've done it a little bit with TortoiseKit. You've probably seen me use TortoiseKit throughout the semester. So
I would say I largely use the version in the IDE. So in VS Code or Android Studio or whatever it is, I usually use the version that's in there in combination with TortoiseKit when I need other things.
Yep.
So that's all good, right? So we've got a repo that's separate and it's got this application in there. We can now go to deploy it, right? So we've done step one. Step one was create this repository. I do want to check step two, which remember was that version number.
Yep, so the version number was in.
Go ahead and close your terminal so you've got more space to work with. You'll notice nowhere in there does it say the version number of node. That's going to cause an issue when you try to deploy. Yeah.
I don't know how to
Kind of what we did before. So actually, we need to go back to the terminal and run that. Actually, we got it. We know it's 1610. But just a reminder, you want to go to your terminal and run stop that server, run node -v, that will give you your version number. And remember, you need to use the version number that's specific to your computer at the time. So 1610.0. Okay, so we're going to add a key in here. Okay, so maybe after private, between private and dependencies, we're going to add in engines, colon, curly brace, and we're going to say node, colon, quotes, and 16.10.0, and then a comma to close out that curly, not there,
Nope,
close out the
there it
curly
is.
brace here. Yeah. So that's what we have to add, is we have to tell it what version of Node are we running against. Okay, and that's going to be the version that you have installed, so that's running the same way as your local on Heroku. This changes pretty fast, which is why everybody's got a different version. You know, they release multiple versions of Node within a single semester. So if you installed it fresh at the beginning of the semester, it's already been, your version's already outdated.
You're already dated.
Which is why everybody's got probably is generally is going to have a different version.
File save, we could see we got one pending source control change.
Yep.
Go ahead and make that.
Yep. Go ahead and make that. That's the one change there.
Stage updated node version in package.json.
Yep.
Then you
That was-
click commit.
Yep. So we made a repository. We set the node version. We now need to add in. Okay. We now want to add a static.json file. So going back to your files, at the root, make sure you're at the root. I would right-click down here, say new file, and we're going to call this static.json. Okay. Do you mind if I type?
Yeah, well,
I'm going to go grab
you
my.
can drive.
I'm going to pull this from somewhere else so I make sure I get it exactly as it needs to be. Because I've already done this in another project, but it's easy to fat finger a few things. So I'm going to pop over to that project. And just to make sure that I get the right one.
Were you talking about Wi-Fi 6 routers earlier? Are you getting one or for like personal use?
Yeah, I got AT&T fiber that runs to my house now, and so I'm getting into that. That's funny you quoted. I literally at 7:55 a.m. this morning. That's what I said. To my
Okay,
buddy.
I'm gonna toss the code for this verbatim into Discord. So it's there if you want to copy it. But this is what needs to be in that static.json file. It's a little bit different than what we did on the portfolio project. So you're going to copy what's on screen. Again, if you want to avoid copy errors, you can go to Discord. I've shared the code on Discord.
And then okay, you're a couple steps behind. I'm gonna get caught up.
Zoom it in. Yeah. Let's see. Control maybe on plus.
Control and yeah, there.
Control and mouse wheel was not working.
Okay. Control plus. Okay. This is the issue, right?
I would copy and paste just to be sure, but it's really exists.
Copy and paste is always, you know, when it's very.
I'm still looking at Npm Install. What do you do after Npm Install?
Okay, so we are back. We now have a static JSON.
Yep.
So now we're on config vars, right?
So we need to create
So-
an application.
Let's go create our app. So let's see. Can I close this?
Yeah, you can close that.
Let's close this, close this, close this, close this. Let's open up this. Okay, it looks like
Your first
YouTube's
tab.
still working. Here's my, okay, I'm on my dashboard.
So you can go to personal. If you're, a lot of people will be here. Click on this one. If you're here right now, you want to click on where it says personal up in the top left corner, and that will get you back to the dashboard.
Now, this might be a good point. Everything that we're interested in should be free.
Yeah.
Does Heroku charge, and for what?
Yes, they do charge for things. So the basic setup like that, they have a free platform, which is pretty generous, to be honest. But there are some things that do cost money. So for instance, what you're just seeing, there's some add-ons that you can add. Those add-ins do cost a certain amount per month, varies by add-on. Those are adding things like a MySQL database or Postgres database or other things that you may want to deploy, or file storage and other things that other people have written or plugins you may want to have. Those cost a certain charge per month. Is also, you know, they have some upgraded plans that are not free, that are meant for like real servers and things like that, and those cost a certain amount per month. The good news is like the cheapest, the hobby tier, their lowest tier that's paid is $7 a month. It's pretty cheap, $7 a month per server per website you're hosting, which is pretty nice, pretty cheap as far as things go in the industry. Yeah, and so there's a few more tiers in there depending on what you want to do.
Yep.
With your system. So we're gonna create a new app.
So a new button, create new app.
Yep.
We've been here before, so I'm gonna call this, I'm gonna mirror the name of my React CRUD cars with hyphens.
Obviously, yours is probably going to be some different names based on whatever you're building.
That, again, this is globally unique per what Mr. Smith said in the last video.
Yeah.
So I can do mine React CRUD cars. If I
It's
click,
available.
it's available. You're probably not available if I click this button first.
Yeah.
Anything else? Add to, no, this is good. Create.
Yep, create it. That's it. You just need to give it a name. And good. You have it.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to go to those config vars, and we're going to set a few things up there.
So we did choose GitHub.
Config vars first.
Config
So
vars first,
let's go to
which
settings,
is in settings.
and let's go reveal config vars. And so these are going to be similar but different. Node env all uppercase, node underscore env, not END, as an environment.
env environment.
Yep, and that's going to be production, again, lowercase. You're going to hit add on that. Okay. And I think that's really the only one we need to set, at least for our simple applications. For my third semester guys, we do set some more stuff up in there, like what's the URL for the back end, right? Because this would be the front end, you know where the back end is. So that's all we need to set here, is just set it to production. We're going to go to build pack, add build pack. Now, create React app's a little bit interesting, okay? You can run create React app, you can run React apps off of the node setup. It's not as optimized for running create app though. So what we want to do is use a different build pack. Anybody notice that there's no build pack there listed for React? See, just for the languages? Okay, so there is one that's out there. It's not official per se, but it is the one that's kind of being maintained by that team. So what you're going to type in is Mars, M-A-R-S, / create dash React dash app. That's what you're going to type in there. It's not going to give you any suggestions. It's not going to tell you what that needs to be. That's what we're creating it as. Mars / create dash.
I'll keep this on the screen just for, you know, being able to follow along.
Yeah. So once you get that typed in, you're going to hit save changes.
In fact, I'll copy paste just, oh, come on. Good, now.
Yeah, problems with dialogues, you can easily accidentally click out on. It's worth mentioning this is a bootstrap dialogue. If you're paying attention to the word. Yeah.
Put it in Discord.
Mars draft wrap, it was nice and short. When we went ahead and hit save changes, notice that it's expanded it to this much larger URL. Because that's the larger URL that Heroku is using to figure out where it's going to pull that down from. So you may notice in there, like it's pulling it from AWS S3, but you'll notice at the end it says build packs Mars create React app .tgz, short for tarball, it's tar-gz. So this is the part that we entered, just this part. The rest of that was automatically entered for us.
Okay.
So what we want to do now that we've set that up is we can actually go to deploy things now. So go back up to the deploy tab, and we're going to follow actually at this point the same process that we did before. So we're going to hit GitHub, which is in the middle. We're going to go find that repository that you created. React code cars. Okay. It's going to spin for a minute. We're going to turn on automatic deploys for this, and then we're going to do a manual deploy at this much. Yeah. And hopefully this will spin for a minute, and it'll be up and live, and we'll be done.
All right, this is awesome. I'm going to pause the video and resume it as soon as it's done.
Well, so the thing you missed is
So I resumed here. It looks like we're coming to the end of this video, and then we're going to be able to help out all the students get caught up. But it says your app was successfully deployed. Let's click on view. Look at this, React crudcars.herokuact.com. This is what my app looks like when you first load it up. We don't have any cars yet, so we save our cars to local storage, and then you click search, and we get the cars popping up. And man, that was easy and awesome. And there's our local storage. There's all of our JavaScript cars, and we're off to the races and running.
So obviously there's a few steps you have to remember, you know, as far as setting up config bars and build packs and setting up your repositories, etc. But it's a pretty easy deploy process overall.
Okay, I'll go ahead and stop this here. We'll get this on YouTube, excuse me, help you guys out, and we got 1 hour left of class.